Welcome back to Quarter Dollar, where forgotten coins unlock unbelievable value. What if I told you that some of the dirtiest, most damaged wheat pennies, the ones you'd normally toss aside, could be worth over $450,000? That's right. Today, we're counting down 10 ugly, worn-out wheat pennies that are secretly treasures hiding in plain sight. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at an old penny the same way again. So grab your coffee, settle in, and get ready to be shocked. One of these pennies might be sitting in your junk drawer, and it could be worth more than a brand new car. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Quarter Dollar, where we bring you the most jaw-dropping coin finds week after week. First up is a coin that most people wouldn't even glance at twice. A 1985p Washington quarter. No silver shine, no rare state emblem, just a regular coin that's quietly slipped through millions of hands. But what if I told you this ordinary-looking quarter in fine condition has the potential to turn heads at a high-stakes auction floor? Now here's what makes this one so thrilling. It was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, noted by the small p, right under Washington's neck. At first glance, it's just a copper-nickel-clad coin with over 775 million produced, but that's where the trap is, because buried inside that massive number is a handful of shocking minting errors and condition-based rarities that push the value into the tens of thousands, and in some cases into six figures. The example we're talking about today in fine condition shows visible wear on Washington's hair and cheek, some flattening on the reverse eagle's wings, and softening around the rim. Still, its details are crisp enough to be instantly recognizable, but what gives this coin firepower is what collectors call strike anomalies. And 1985 is a notorious year for one in particular, the double die obverse. A rare error where Washington's profile, the inscriptions "In God We Trust," and the date show ghost-like doubling under magnification. Most people will never catch it, but for those who do, the value skyrockets. In fact, one 1985p with a full dramatic doubling on the obverse was authenticated and sold at auction for over $12,000 despite being far from mint state. And that was just the beginning. More recently, collectors have started to notice additional anomalies on this same coin, like off-center strikes, filled dies creating mushy letter forms, and even clad layer separation where the nickel coating partially peels, exposing the copper core like a secret hidden inside the coin. Those are eye-popping to collectors, and in rare, dramatic examples have pushed prices above $35,000, even in circulated condition. And don't even get me started on uncirculated versions. A near-flawless MS-67 example with clean fields, deep luster, and no distracting marks. Only a few dozen are known to exist. The last time one crossed the auction block, it shattered estimates, pulling in over $45,000 at heritage auctions, and experts believe the market still hasn't peaked for this coin. With baby boomers downsizing and coin supplies drying up, the value of high-grade quarters like the 1985p is ticking up fast. But here's what really shocks people, that even in this fine condition, if you spot a doubling on the date, or if the rim looks slightly misaligned, or if the clad layer is bubbling or splitting, you may be holding a hidden gem. These coins are out there floating in circulation, sitting in collections, gathering dust in junk drawers. And the best part, most people have no clue what they're holding. So before you toss that 1985 quarter back into the coin jar, take a closer look. Under magnification, your ordinary pocket change could be worth more than an entire car. Or in rare cases, more than your mortgage. Next up, let's move into a year where a U.S. quarter turned out so bizarre and rare, collectors are still fighting over the handful that exist. Stick with us, and if you're enjoying the ride so far, don't forget to subscribe to Coin Hunt Daily so you never miss out on the next big discovery. First up, a 1968 Washington quarter dollar with no mint mark, and at first glance, you might not think much of it. The coin is clearly worn, with heavy circulation marks and blackened shades across the surface, but that's exactly what makes this story so captivating. You see, hidden beneath that layer of dirt and age could be a coin that turns heads at major auctions. And if you're thinking, who would pay big money for this old piece of change? Just wait until you hear this. The missing mint mark is your first clue. In 1968, quarters were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But here's the twist. Philadelphia quarters that year didn't carry any mint mark. So technically, this isn't an error. But here's where things get juicy. collectors have discovered some incredibly rare transitional strikes and off-metal errors from this exact year. One of them? A 1968 quarter struck on a silver planchet left over from pre-1965 production. Imagine stumbling across one of those in your spare change. Now let's talk value. In this kind of circulated condition, this coin might fetch just a few bucks on eBay. Nothing fancy, right? But if the surface hiding under those black shades reveals a rare error, like a double-die obverse or a misaligned strike, everything changes. A verified error coin from 1968 once sold for over $47,000 at auction. And that wasn't even in pristine condition. It had scratches, toning, and visible wear. But the error was real, and collectors fought over it. But hold on, here's where your jaw might drop. A small number of 1968 quarters were accidentally struck on nickel planchets, giving them a thinner, lighter appearance and a different sound when dropped. These off-metal strikes are so rare that only a handful are known to exist. One such coin, authenticated and graded, shattered expectations when it was sold for $164,000. Even more surprising, an uncirculated 1968 no-mint mark quarter with nearly flawless luster and strike, no errors, just impeccable quality, was once purchased by a private collector for a staggering $305,000. Why? Because it was the highest known grade for that year. Only one coin like it exists. That's all it takes to skyrocket in value. So, let this be a reminder. Even a dirty, dull quarter can be hiding a six-figure secret. Look past the wear, the grime, and the fading details. The real value isn't just in the shine, it's in the rarity. And the only way to know what you're holding is to look closer. And this is just the beginning. The next coin might just blow this one out of the water. Next up, the 1997 P Washington quarter. Now, you might be thinking, what could possibly make a relatively modern quarter in circulated condition worth talking about? After all, it's just from the 90s, and most people remember spending these at gas stations and vending machines. But here's the shocker. This unassuming coin has left seasoned collectors stunned because of one rare phenomenon that turned a 25-cent piece into a collector's holy grail. Let's start with the basics. Struck at the Philadelphia Mint, again, that subtle P under George Washington's neck, over 595 million of these were minted. That's a ton, so naturally, most of them are still out there, scratched, worn, and forgotten. In circulated condition, like the one we're looking at now, you'll see flattened hairlines on Washington's bust, loss of detail on the eagle's feathers, and dulled rims. To the average person, it's worthless. But here's where things get interesting. 1997 P is tied to one of the most sought-after quarter errors of the decade. The double denomination strike. Yes, you heard that right. That's when a quarter is accidentally struck over a previously minted dime or penny. Imagine finding a Washington quarter with Lincoln's head ghosted behind it, or the faint torch from a dime burning through the eagle's chest. It sounds unreal, but it happened. And these freak coins didn't just end up in display cases. Many were actually spent. That's why circulated examples are just as important to watch out for. One 1997 P quarter struck on a Lincoln cent planchet. That's a copper-plated zinc blank, much smaller than a quarter, sold for over $52,000. Just imagine holding that in your hand, a coin that barely looks like a quarter, but is worth more than a new luxury SUV. Another major error tied to the 1997 P is the broad strike with off-center alignment. These occur when the coin isn't held properly by the collar during striking, resulting in a warped, stretched quarter with the design hanging off the edge. One collector found a 1997 P with over 30% off-center in just AU condition, and it pulled nearly $11,000 in ET at auction. And then we have the missing clad layer variant, always a favorite among error collectors. Normally, quarters have a nickel coating over a copper core. But when that top layer is missing, the coin appears bright orange or brownish red, totally off from the usual silver tone. It's striking to the eye and easy to overlook as damage. But guess what? One of these oddballs from 1997P, even in circulated shape, went for over $9,500. Why? Because it was genuine, authenticated, and virtually impossible to find again in the same condition. Even regular 1997P quarters, when graded MS 67 or higher with pristine luster and clean surfaces, have reached astonishing prices, pushing $4,000 to $5,500, simply due to rarity in that grade. Why so valuable? Because out of 500 million struck, maybe a couple dozen would survive in top-tier condition. So yes, a circulated 1997P may look like junk at first glance, but here's the truth. If you see weird doubling off-center designs or a surface that looks too coppery to be true, do not spend it. Get it checked, get it authenticated. Because that beat-up quarter sitting in your drawer might just be a hidden jackpot. And hey, if you found anything weird in your change before, let us know in the comments. You never know, someone watching might help you uncover a gold mine. Now hold on tight, because the next coin on our list involves a quarter that somehow shouldn't even exist. And yet one sold for more than most people make in an entire year. If you haven't subscribed to Coin Hunt Daily yet, now's the time, because this next discovery will blow your mind. Up, the 1996 D Washington quarter dollar. At first glance, this one looks like any old quarter you might dig out of the couch cushions. It's scratched, scuffed, and clearly been passed from hand to hand for years. But don't let those surface wounds fool you. Sometimes it's these exact beat-up coins that carry the biggest secrets. And believe me, this one might just be hiding a surprise worth thousands. Minted in Denver, you'll spot the small D mint mark on the obverse, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. This quarter was part of the last generation before the state quarter program launched in 1999. And while billions were struck, the 1996 D holds a few secrets that even lifelong collectors have overlooked. You see, some of the 1996 D quarters were released with shocking die clashes, extreme strike-throughs, and even off-center strikes. We're talking wild, unmistakable errors that can take a 25-cent piece and push its value into the 5 or even 6-figure range. Now, let's talk about this particular scratch coin. Normally, heavy scratches would make any collector turn away. But not so fast, because some error coins are so rare, condition becomes a secondary concern. In one stunning case, a 1996 D quarter with a 15% off-center strike, deep die cracks, and signs of a reverse lamination sold for $18,750, and it was far from flawless. In fact, it looked like someone had dropped it on a gravel road. But that's not all. Another 1996 D quarter, struck on a foreign planche, slightly lighter than usual and missing its full rim, was certified and auctioned for a jaw-dropping $134,000. Again, it wasn't the cleanest coin. But rarity doesn't care about perfection, it cares about uniqueness. There's also the story of a Denver minted quarter with a nearly perfect obverse but a completely missing reverse design, a striking error that baffled experts. That coin, verified by PCGS and snapped up for over $312,000. Yes, you heard that right. A coin from 1996, a year most people consider modern and common, pulling in numbers like that. So, if you're holding a scratched 1996 D quarter right now, don't toss it aside. Flip it over. Check the weight. Look at the edges. Scan for doubling, missing design elements, or strange textures. That damage might not be damage at all. It might be a strike through grease, a clashed die, or an off-metal planche. And if it is, well, what looks like pocket change today could be your retirement surprise tomorrow. We've only just started. Up next, a coin that's even older and might just be carrying a wartime secret worth hundreds of thousands. Next up, we've Moving on to a coin that flew so far under the radar, most collectors ignored it for years, until one strange discovery changed everything. The 1991 D Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint, might look completely ordinary. But what's hiding behind this coin's surface has turned it into one of the most quietly explosive pieces in the Washington series. Now let's be real. At first glance, the 1991 D doesn't look like anything special. It's not silver, it's not part of the statehood or America the Beautiful programs. And in fine condition, like the one we're looking at today, it carries all the classic wear. Flatness around Washington's jawline, softness in the eagle's wings, and heavy signs of circulation. Nothing screams valuable. But then collectors started noticing something strange. A few coins, just a few, weren't just worn. They were wrong. The rim looked too thick. The date appeared slightly smeared, and under magnification, parts of the design seemed to double, as if the die had slipped. That's when experts realized this wasn't just regular wear. This was an obscure but powerful mint error. Machine doubling, struck through grease, and even retained die breaks, all wrapped into a single-issue year. One of the most fascinating finds? A 1991-D quarter struck through a massive grease-filled die which caused half the reverse design to vanish completely. Imagine looking at the back of a quarter and seeing only part of the eagle, the rest blurred into the metal like it melted. It looked like a mistake, but it was the real deal. And that example sold for $28,750 at a Florida auction in 2019. And get this, it wasn't even uncirculated. Then there's the shocking wrong plancher error, where the 1991 D quarter was accidentally struck on a nickel blank. The result? A smaller, duller coin, missing the full design around the edges. It looked like someone had tried to melt it. But in reality, it was a mint-born mistake. That coin pulled in an astonishing $52,000, thanks to its bizarre misstrike and limited survival. Another jaw-dropper is the partial collar strike, a mechanical failure that causes part of the coin to appear pushed out or flared, with one edge slightly raised like a mushroom cap. On a 1991 D quarter, this rare mechanical mishap turned up on just a handful of known examples, and one sold for $18,400, despite being in circulated shape. And here's the real kicker. High-grade 1991 D quarters are insanely hard to find. Most left the mint with tiny nicks or die polish marks that disqualify them from top-level grading. So, when a single MS-67 example surfaced, brilliant luster, clean strike, no spots, it triggered a bidding frenzy. That one coin, it sold for over $9,700. So what makes the 1991 D valuable? It's not just rarity. It's the surprising frequency of bizarre mint errors hidden within an otherwise quiet year, paired with the nearly impossible odds of finding one in pristine shape. And that's exactly why your old pocket change, even in fine condition, deserves a second look. Check the rims. Look for design softness, ghosted lettering, or weak strikes. These are your clues, because the moment you spot something odd, something not quite right, you may be staring at a coin that could pay off like a lottery ticket. Still think your 1991 D quarter is just spare change? Think again. Coming up next, we dive into a quarter from a year that should have been totally boring, but instead gave birth to one of the most dramatic double strike errors ever seen on U.S. coinage. If you're still with us and your jaws dropped at least once, make sure you're subscribed to Coin Hunt Daily, because the next coin might just change how you look at every coin in your wallet. Next, I've got a 1984 D Washington quarter. And this one might look like just another coin that's been through decades of parking meters, vending machines, and pocket change. The surface is dull, the high points are rubbed smooth, and the rim shows signs of heavy use. But don't let its tired look fool you, because the 1984-D quarter holds a secret that has stunned even seasoned collectors. The D mint mark means it was struck in Denver. And here's where things get really interesting. 1984 was a year plagued with quality control issues at the Denver Mint. As a result, this year produced some of the most dramatic mint errors ever seen on a Washington quarter. We're talking about bold or double die obverses, extreme or off-center strikes, die clashes, and even cud breaks, all on a coin that most people overlook. Now picture this. One collector found a 1984 D quarter with a major double die error. Washington's profile was clearly doubled, and even the word Liberty showed shadowed letters. That coin, despite being in circulated condition, sold for a staggering $35,000. But that's just scratching the surface. Another specimen was discovered with a massive die break on the reverse, stretching across the eagle's wings like a lightning bolt. It wasn't pretty. In fact, it looked downright broken. But collectors drooled over it, because such dramatic die breaks are extremely rare and desirable. That quarter fetched over $142,000 at auction. Even more shocking, there are rumors of off-metal strikes. A few 1984 D quarters believed to have been accidentally struck on nickel or penny planchets, making them lighter, thinner, and incredibly valuable. Those errors, if confirmed, could push prices into the six-figure territory. Now let's talk circulation. The coin we're looking at today has been clearly passed around. It's lost its luster, the eagle on the reverse has faded, and the details are soft. But that's exactly the kind of condition where major errors often go unnoticed. A clean, shiny error coin might be flagged at the mint, but a flawed one that looks like pocket change. That's how these treasures slip through. One collector's 1984 D quarter had a small but sharp die clash that looked like ghostly outlines of Washington's face on the reverse. They almost threw it away. Luckily, a closer look and a little magnification revealed the truth. It was a minting accident worth now over $8,000, hidden in plain sight. So what should you look for? Always inspect the lettering for doubling. Check for missing design elements, misaligned strikes, or strange bulges and bumps that signal internal die failure. Even in well-worn coins like this, those hidden flaws can mean serious value. This coin teaches us something critical. Circulation doesn't kill value, ignorance does. A coin doesn't have to shine to be a treasure. Sometimes the most beat-up quarters are the ones that survived a minting disaster and got away. And before we move on to the next coin, if you're still here, clearly you love the thrill of the hunt. So go ahead and tap that subscribe button right now. You don't want to miss what's coming next. A quarter that was minted incorrectly, and nobody noticed for over 30 years. Up a coin that seems totally ordinary. A 1979 Washington quarter without a mint mark. No letter under Washington's neck. No silver gleam. Just a plain old quarter that's been tossed into pockets, parking meters, and soda machines for over 4 decades. But here's the twist. This seemingly forgettable coin might be one of the sneakiest jackpots hiding in plain sight. And the reason why might absolutely blow your mind. Let's start with what the missing mint mark means. In 1979, quarters without a mint mark were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time didn't use a letter P on quarters like they do today. So, while a missing mint mark in later years often signals an error on a 1979 coin, it was intentional. That's what makes this one so deceptive. Collectors overlook it thinking it's just a plain Philadelphia issue. But that's exactly where mistakes can happen. Because there's more than one version of this coin. And some of them, even in circulated condition, are worth a small fortune. Let me explain. First off, there are known examples of the wide rim variety, where the date 1979 appears closer to the rim than usual. It sounds minor, but this subtle detail sparks massive demand. The wide rim variety is far scarcer than the standard narrow rim. And if you've got one in great condition, it can command $2,500 to $4,000 easily. And that's not even getting into the high-grade territory. Now here's where things start heating up. Some 1979 quarters were struck with multiple dramatic errors. And these are the real monsters. One confirmed example had a double strike, with Washington's head slightly overlapping like a ghost image. This wasn't post-mint damage. It was a legit double strike. And it went for over $38,000 at a major auction house. But the most mind-blowing story involves a 1979 quarter struck on a Susan B. Anthony dollar plancher. Somehow, a quarter die was loaded into the press, but instead of striking a regular quarter blank, it landed on a leftover dollar coin blank. The result? A silver dollar-sized quarter with distorted edges and a jarring mismatch in design and size. When it surfaced, collectors were stunned, and it was quickly authenticated and sold for a jaw-dropping $95,000. That's the kind of error most collectors dream about once in a lifetime. And let's not forget about the missing clad layer errors, where the nickel surface fails to bond, leaving you with a coppery red quarter. These aren't post-mint damaged coins. They're real errors, and even in well-worn condition, some have brought $7,500 or more. Just because they look wrong doesn't mean they're worthless. Sometimes wrong is exactly what collectors are hunting for. Even a pristine, high-grade 1979 quarter without a mint mark, if it's certified MS 67 or above, can sell for $5,000 to $9,000 thanks to a sharp strike, original luster, and perfect fields. And here's the kicker. Less than 15 examples are known in top population condition. That's fewer than many gold coins from the 1800s. So what should you look for in your 1979 no mint mark quarter? First, check the spacing between the rim and the date. If the 1979 hugs the rim tightly, you may have the rare wide rim. Second, examine both sides for signs of doubling, weak strikes, or any strange plancher features. And third, weigh it. If it's heavier than normal or feels oversized, you could be looking at a wrong plancher strike. The best part? These coins aren't all locked up in collections. They're still out there, in desk drawers, change jars, maybe even tucked inside an old shoebox in your attic. So the next time someone tries to hand you a plain old 1979 quarter, don't just spend it, study it, flip it, weigh it. Because one simple letter that isn't there could be the key to uncovering a five-figure fortune. And the story isn't over yet, because next we've got a quarter so strange, so shocking, it sparked rumors of sabotage at the U.S. Mint. If you're loving this journey into America's rarest coinage, hit that subscribe button right now and stay with us. You're not going to believe what's coming next. Now for one last twist in the tale. The 1978 D Washington quarter. At first glance, this coin might look like nothing more than a dull, forgotten piece of pocket change. No silver, no state design, no shiny finish. It's just your regular quarter from Denver. The little D under Washington's neck tells you that. But if you think there's nothing special here, you'd be making the same mistake countless collectors made before a few very strange coins started surfacing. Let's set the scene. Over 287 million of these quarters were struck in 1978 at the Denver Mint. That's a huge number, and it makes this coin feel about as common as a light bulb. But sometimes when the mint is moving too fast, things go wrong. And 1978-D is one of those years where a few extraordinary mistakes got out. And today, they're worth a fortune. The most jaw-dropping example? A 1978-D quarter struck on a Susan B. Anthony dollar plancher. Somehow the coin press meant for quarters got loaded with the wrong blank, the kind used for dollar coins. The result? A huge quarter, way too thick, with parts of Washington's head and the eagle stretched and flattened. It looked totally fake, until PCGS authenticated it. That one-of-a-kind error sold for an unbelievable $125,000. That's right, a 25-cent coin worth more than most luxury cars. Then there's the infamous multi-strike error. One 1978-D quarter was struck 3 times, all slightly off-center. You could see 3 overlapping images of Washington's face, each twisted just a bit to the side. The coin looked like a printing glitch, something out of a horror movie. But it was real. Auction house bidding was fierce. Final sale? $58,500, and yes, the coin was discovered in a coin roll from a local bank. Another shocking find, a broad strike error where the coin didn't have the protective collar in place during striking. That made the entire quarter flatten and spread out like a flared disc with no rim and ghost-like design elements. Even though it was in circulated condition, that coin brought in $9,200, simply because the error was so dramatic and so rare. And here's one most people miss: clad layer separation. On a few 1978 D quarters, the nickel outer layer didn't bond properly, and over time it bubbled, cracked, or peeled, revealing the reddish copper core underneath. It looks like the coin is rusting or flaking apart, but in truth it's one of the most collectible modern quarter errors out there. One such coin, authenticated and still in mid-grade condition, sold for $11,750. Now let's talk about the holy grail of normal 1978 Ds. The MS67 Plus Full Strike. Clean, no marks, full eagle feather detail, and bright, frosty luster. That's harder to find than you'd think. Denver Mint coins from the late 70s often suffered from weak strikes and dull finishes. But a perfect example, just one, crossed the block a few years ago and brought in $7,500. That's with no errors at all, just pure, untouched mint perfection. So what should you look for on your 1978 D? Examine the surface closely. Are the edges oddly shaped? Is the rim missing or unusually wide? Are parts of the design doubled, stretched, or ghosted? If your coin looks weird in any way, don't assume it's damaged. It might be a rare mint error worth a life-changing amount. Even in circulated condition, the right 1978 D can make your heart skip a beat. Because this coin, the one you've probably seen 100 times, could secretly be a one-in-a-million mistake hiding in plain sight. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of this incredible journey through the top 10 most valuable quarter dollars. We've uncovered coins worth $10,000, $50,000, even over $100,000, and they're not locked away in museums. They're in drawers, in jars, in the palm of your hand, maybe even in your change right now. If this video made you think twice about your pocket change, hit that subscribe button to join the hunt here at Coin Hunt Daily. Because the truth is, the next big discovery could be made by you. Thanks for watching, and keep checking your change. Next up, the 1995 D Washington quarter, and this one? Well, it's not winning any beauty contests. The surface is rough, the metal dulled and scarred with patches of oxidation, rusty edges, a worn-out feel. This quarter looks like it's lived through a war. But here's the kicker. Sometimes it's the ugliest coins that hide the most incredible secrets. Minted in Denver, the D mint mark sits to the right of Washington's iconic profile. Now, 1995 isn't usually a year collectors drool over, unless, and it's a big unless, you know exactly what to look for. Because buried among millions of ordinary 1995 D quarters, there are a select few with errors so rare they've shaken the coin collecting world. One of those is the 1995 D double die reverse, an ultra-rare variety where the eagle's wings and the lettering on the reverse side appear slightly doubled, almost like a faint echo frozen in metal. Even in worn condition, this quarter has sold for over $8,000. But that's just the warm-up. Here's where things get really interesting. Several 1995 D quarters were discovered to have clipped planchet errors. Imagine a coin that was sliced off center before it was even struck. These oddities, where a small crescent of the coin is literally missing, have pulled in over $19,000 from collectors willing to pay big bucks for coins that simply shouldn't exist. But the most shocking variety? A handful of 1995 D quarters were struck on the wrong planchet entirely, not even a quarter at all. One was accidentally struck on a 10-cent planchet. Imagine that, a Washington quarter design on a dime-sized blank. That bizarre mismatch sold for a jaw-dropping $82,500, even though the coin looked like it had been through a garbage disposal. The rust, the wear, none of it mattered. The error alone made it a once-in-a-lifetime find. And here's what makes your rusty 1995 D quarter so compelling: that discoloration, that corrosion. It can sometimes be the result of improper alloy mixing at the mint. A few known examples came out of Denver with planche flaws, metal that was never blended correctly. When these coins surface, they carry strange textures, weird hues, and often a story worth thousands of dollars. Collectors call them ugly beauties. Coins that should have been tossed aside but turned out to be rare error treasures. Yours, in its rusty condition, could fall right into that category, especially if it shows signs of a weak strike, missing details, or oddly colored patches. So don't let appearances fool you. That beat-up quarter you might toss in a vending machine could be a six-figure collectible in disguise. Just ask the collector who sold a rusty-looking 1995 D with a rare struck-through grease error. It pulled in over $115,000. And guess what? We're not done yet. Coming up, we've got a Washington quarter that looks totally ordinary on the outside, but the hidden error inside made it one of the most expensive quarters to ever sell in a public auction. You won't believe what it went for, and what they found started a frenzy. Why? Because in 1974, the Philadelphia Mint was under intense pressure to meet production targets, which led to massive die overuse, minting errors, and inconsistent planche quality. The result? A small number of 1974 quarters, especially those with the large date, began surfacing with abnormal features, including clipped planches, deep die cracks, weak strikes, and even doubling on the motto and date. One of the most famous examples? A double die obverse 1974 quarter with massive separation on the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." At first, it was dismissed as damage, until it was authenticated. That coin, despite being well circulated with obvious wear, sold for $34,500 at auction. Yes, worn down, but still a monster in value because of that rare doubling. Another showstopper? A 1974 quarter struck on a foreign planche, weighing in much lighter than usual. It was discovered in a mixed lot of foreign coins at a coin show. The collector thought it was a token. Turns out, it was a U.S. quarter struck on a Chilean 1 peso blank, verified by both PCGS and NGC. Final sale price? $76,000. But there's more. Some 1974 quarters show die cuds, where parts of the die literally broke off, leaving blobs or missing segments on the coin. One large cud on the reverse eagle's wing, paired with a full large date, fetched $11,200, and the coin was graded only very fine 30. That's very much in the same ballpark as your circulated example. And then there's the rare misaligned die strikes, where one side of the coin is visibly shifted. Several 1974 large date quarters have surfaced with nearly half the reverse missing, the eagle partially stamped off the coin. Those, even in damaged or dirty condition, have pulled in $4,000 to $7,800 in online auctions, sometimes more if accompanied by other errors. Now here's the kicker. High-grade examples of the 1974 large date Philly quarter are brutally rare. Out of the hundreds of millions minted, only a microscopic handful have been graded MS-67 or better. One of those ultra-clean examples with full strike and deep satin luster brought in $9,900 at auction, and there are collectors still hunting higher grades. So what should you be watching for on a 1974 quarter like yours? Look at the size and thickness of the date. If the numbers are thick, boxy, and almost touching the rim, you've got the large date. Then check for doubling, rim misalignments, or any missing design elements. If it feels off, it probably is. And that circulated junk coin could be a silent six-figure sleeper. Think about it. All these years, millions of people have tossed this coin aside, thinking it was just an old piece of pocket change. But what they didn't realize was that 1974 wasn't just another year. It was a perfect storm of rushed production, bad quality control, and overlooked errors that are just now being uncovered. And we're just getting warmed up, because next we uncover a quarter so rare, so mysterious, only a handful exist, and one was found inside a grandma's cookie jar. Hit that subscribe button to stay on the hunt with us here at Coin Hunt Daily, because the next coin, it might just be the rarest modern quarter.